What is going on, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my Templar healer build. So the first one you saw was quite a while back. New gear has changed, new ultimates have been added to the game, and just generally upgrades happened. That one is still good, I would say, but this one is more for a late game build that works generally, and it's like more something that's harder to get, but it's still obtainable by anyone. So first of all, I'm going to be going over all the gear I'm using, and then I'm going to be going over my abilities, and then we'll do champion points, and then everything else. So if you haven't caught up with part 1, that one's more of like a beginner build to intermediate one. This one is more a late game one, and trying to see how you can improve late game for dungeons and trials. So, with that said, let's start off with the gear. We're using a 5-piece set of the worm. This one, it used to be bind on equip. Now it's bind on pickup, which means you have to do the dungeons to get them. However, if you still have pieces from before 1 Tamriel, so if you're playing this on console, I do believe you have like 3 more days from the 15th to the 18th. Or the 18th is when it goes live on console, and I'm recording this on the 15th. So between that time, you might want to stock up on worm pieces if you can. If not, to just drop in dungeons, which is really not that difficult. I do believe you can get it in Bolt of Madness and pretty much anything, honestly. But I've just noticed a lot of drops from Bolt of Madness. So let's start off with the worm set. The reason why you're using it is because of the 5 item set bonus. So what it does is reduces the cost of your magic abilities by 5% for you and your group. So as a healer, your magic abilities are all heals, and like all your healing and damage is magic based. So generally reducing the cost of that for you and your group is a good thing. And for your enchants, you mostly want magic. So enchants are the top little line, and then traits are the ones under it. For the most part, you want divines. That is best in slot. However, the effect is more important than the trait. So if you can get 5 pieces of it, that's good. It doesn't really matter, but if you want like the best stats and stuff, then divines is the best way to go. So overall, you're going to want the effect of the set more than the trait, if that makes sense. So we're using the worm on the hat, the chest piece, and the boots. And then the next, and then 2 rings. Keep in mind that rings and jewelry are the most expensive in the game, just because jewelry and weapons are usually the most expensive. I'm pretty sure it's the same on console as well as PC. So I can't really go over prices that much, as, well, like, it's probably different. So next we are using spell power here. Now this is the top tier item or top tier set you could get for a healer. And the reason why is because the 5 set is when you heal a friendly target that is at full health, you have a 50% chance to increase the weapon and spell damage by 249 for 10 seconds. So that's a huge buff to pretty much everybody. And the way you get it is from White Gold Tower. I do believe if you do the normal White Gold Tower, you get it at champion point 150. If you do it in that's like any lower level than 50, then I believe it just scales to your level. But top tier is 160 at the moment. And obviously divines is the best thing you want to do as well. But it is all RNG whether you get divines or not. So I do have some pieces of spell power here that aren't divines, which lowers it a little bit, but it's not really too big of a deal. I've ran dungeons multiple times without it, and everything still goes fine. So the 4 or 5 pieces I use of spell power here are the shoulders, gloves, belt, pants, and necklace. Now what's new is the spell power here pieces, and now has jewelry. Before it used to just be armor, and now you can get it in rings and necklace as well, which is actually really good because you could free up more slots on your armor and try out different sets. So that's always good. After we go over everything here, I'll try to explain I'll try to include some other options you could use in case you don't have them at the moment. So there you can pick up some other ideas. Some are craftable, some are findable, but mostly there are lower tier stuff that work just as well. But if you're going for best in slot, Spell Power Cure is number 1, and then Worm is good. It's more for trials, but it still works. There are other options to it. Alright, so your Restoration Staff. You're a healer. That is your most important weapon. The reason why our enchant deals like X amount of damage and restores magic is when you do damage and like light and heavy, you can restore magic, which helps you maintain your resources, which causes you to heal more in general, which is always a good thing. And then your trait is always going to be powered. Powered increases your healing done by up to 7% at legendary status, and that's what you want to go for in general. Powered for your healing staff, always. There's no replacements, always powered. And then your second bar is going to be your like off heals and DPS bar. Now, I've seen different varieties. I've actually tested a few different things. So with dungeons, there are some bosses that require heavy heals, and then there are some bosses where it's not as difficult, so you could just do more heals or you could do damage. I will explain some other things after this, but right now I use the Inferno Staff of the Torx Pact. Unless you have like Maelstrom or Master Weapons, the staff on your bar doesn't really matter, simply because there's no one item set effect except for the Master and Maelstrom. So pretty much you're just going to want to use this for doing additional damage. So yeah, that's why I chose this. In my opinion, the Flame Staff is top tier over Lightning and Ice. I don't really know why ZeniMax did that, but it just is. And the reasoning for that is when you toss like damage down, I'll just show you real quick. So this is our Fire Staff. If you charge a heavy attack, you see how it shoots off in 2. If you shoot it with lightning or ice, it's only 1. So if you hit 2, it just does double. I don't know why they did that, but good job, ZeniMax. You made the Flame Staff way above average between the other two. So anyway, as for the trait, you could use Sharpened if you want more damage, or you could just pick Precise if you're going for like higher heal crits, or you could go with Powered again since you're going to be having at least one back bar heal on here. But I just chose to go for more damage just because I do have backup weapons, so I want to do as much as possible. So Sharpened is generally the best damage trait you could possibly get. So even for DPS builds, Sharpened top tier. So that's why I use that. Okay, so some other weapons I choose for my back bar are dual Torx Pact weapons. The reason why I chose dual wield weapons with Precise is simply because when you have 2 weapons, you get double the damage, and that means you get double the healing as well, and mostly because you get the enchants. Well, 2-piece increases your spell damage for the effect. So having more spell damage and more magicka generally means your healing hits a little bit higher. Also means your damage is a bit higher. So the reason why I chose Staff is more because this does a little bit more heavy, and this one is more for a mix of balance of healing and damage, and this one's for higher damage. So this one, you heal a little bit higher since they have Precise traits on it, and you get the double enchants, and you get the 2-piece spell damage. It's more for a healing higher and doing damage. But ultimately, it really doesn't matter what you choose. So now that we've gone over our weapons, I'm going to go over some additional sets you could possibly use. So I know another weapon, or where is it? Another set is the Kagranak's Hope. Now, this is the set I used to use before getting spell power, and the reason why you want it is because it gives pretty much everything you need from 2 to 5 pieces of the armor. Maximum magicka, recovery, health is generally good, but there's always ways to spec around it. And then additional spell damage. Also, it decreases the time it takes to resurrect an ally by 25%, and you get more magic when you revive an ally. But this one is craftable. I do believe you can get it from the Forge, which is one of the Fighters Guild quest lines. And I'm not going to spoil anything because if you play through the main story, you're going to have to go there. So I'm not going to say anything else about it. Once you go there, you unlock the Forge, and you can always go back and forth. Otherwise, you can buy this from a merchant and whatnot. Or not merchant, but like other people. So, Kagranak's Hope is a good one. Julianos is a good one. That one gives more magical recovery and critical. So, Kagranak's Hope is one. Worm is the other. I do have another set. It's called Twilight's Remedy. Now, that one you can get from the Maw of Lorcage. That one, I would say it's a bit harder to get because that is a trial, and I understand not everyone is like ready to do that one. So, if you can get it, Twilight is good. Essentially, what the Twilight set does is the 5-piece. If other people activate your synergies, which means like if I toss down spears, for example, or something where you can hit your button and then it does another effect, they heal themselves for a lot more. So generally, more heals, and Twilight set is pretty good for a healer build. And then, if you don't have all that, Engine Guardian also works. It's not the best. And the Troll King, this one's a new set actually. I've been messing around with it, but I feel like if you have spell power and all that stuff, your healing is going to be way above average. And generally, the 2-piece for additional healing done isn't really going to make much of a difference. But this one's actually a new set that they added from one Tamriel. If you're a console player, you can get this from the chest by doing Undaunted Dailies. And it's something to look for. Now, I've been testing it. I can't really say if it's that good or not. If I were to use it, I would only use the 1-piece because it gives 2% healing. And then the 2-piece, what it does is when you heal a friendly target, if they're below 60, their health recovery is increased by quite a bit for 10 seconds. So, that's interesting. Not really sure how I feel about it, but it doesn't seem that bad. Okay, so next on our list, we are going to go through the Apprentice, or wait, actually, Mundus Stone. I used to use the Apprentice. The Ritual increases your healing. That means healing done. And generally, if your healing is higher, that's better. So that's always good. And yeah. So the Worm's Raiment is your passive you get for that. And you guys might see this one for the Werewolf and what is it, Vampire. It's simply because with the new event, which is like the Witches Festival, if you drink this Double Bloody Mara thingy, it gives you the vampire thing. I think it's actually bugged right now, which gives you a vampire effect that you can't cancel. And I really don't want that. Because if you're a healer, taking additional fire damage is generally not good. And I was like, oh, let's try this. It's yellow. It must be good, right? And this is from the effect, so I do believe it's bugged. And yeah, now we have vampirism until they fix it and take it away. But other than that, like, I don't even have the vampire skills. All I have is werewolf because that was my main one. But overall, don't worry about that one. If you don't want it, don't use it. Now let's go over our skills real quick. Okay, so bar 1, as you guys can see, is my staff one. And then bar 2 is my healer build staff area. Okay, so 1. As you may notice, all weapons do have new ultimates. These are added from one Tamriel. I've been doing a lot of testing with them. And I will try to give you replacements if you don't have them yet. So first of all, let's go over our main abilities. 1. Rapid Regeneration. Now this is going to be one of your main abilities that activates your spell power cure. Essentially, what it does is heals you or 2 enemies nearby for a lot over 16.5 seconds. The other morph of this is mutagen. I do believe both of the morphs are actually really good, as I've tested them both. Now this one is more like how you should pick it is dependent on who you play with. If you play with random people all the time, I do believe mutagen might be a little bit better, simply because you never know when one person is going to die randomly or do something dumb. And if you are playing with good people, rapid regen, if you know they can stay alive well, just healing them for more over time, or like less time, but you heal them. And I do believe rapid regen is generally a good one. Both morphs are pretty good, but I just play with good people most of the time. So rapid regen really does better for me. Next is Healing Springs. Healing Springs is your AoE heal ability. I don't think I've ever seen anyone use the other morph, because simply Healing Springs is the best one to get. Now, I'll show you what this looks like. So if you do 1, this is your... well, there aren't any people around here right now. But your rapid regen, it like shoots a beam to 2 other people. And then if you drop your Healing Springs, it looks like that. That's your AoE. So people standing in the circle radius area will be healed. So that's always good. Just having them heal over time while you're either DPSing yourself or doing more healing is good. Combat Prayer is our 3-1. The reason why we use this is because you can shoot a straight line of heals, and not only does it do that, it increases your allies' damage done by 8% and gives them more resistances for 8 seconds. So the way this works is, if you cast your Combat Prayer, you're going to see a straight line, or a straight line down. And if your allies are standing right in front of it, you can see that they will get a buff. Well, if you're in PC, you can see the timers, but if not, don't worry about it. You just count to like 7 seconds in your head or something, 8 seconds, and then recast. It is a pretty expensive magic skill, so you can't spam the ability like you would be spamming your rapid regen or your Healing Springs. But every 8 seconds, if you can count to that yourself or have some sort of like timer, I guess, you can. That's when you know when to recast. Now our 4, I decided to slot Healing Ward on my main bar, simply because I do more dungeons and trials, and what it does is it chooses the ally with the lowest health and gives them a bubble shield. It looks like this, and it goes up to 3% based on how much like damage they've been taken. So if it's like at 30% or something, the shield will be a little bit stronger. And then once the ward expires, it heals them for like 140% or something like that. I'm not sure if it's different, but I know the numbers will be different for you guys, simply because the gear is always different. Numbers aren't exactly the same. And then our 5 is going to be on our both bars, as you guys can see from 1 and 2. Inner Light, that one is under the Mages Guild. Now, we use Inner Light because when it's slotted, your maximum magicka is increased by 5% and increases your spell critical rating by 2191. Now, increasing your max magic and spell damage increases your healing damage done, and that's always good. And if you do spell crits, it increases your healing like that. Criticals for healing work the same way as it does for damage. Criticals like essentially double it. So if you do healing 5k or like 5,000 healing, if you hit a critical, it'll be like, I don't know, 10,000 or something like that. So essentially that's good. That's why you have this on both bars. You just have to keep it slotted. You don't really have to cast it. As long as it's slotted, it's good to go. And we have to have it on both bars, otherwise the effect will disappear. So if you swap bars and it's only on one, the effect will go away for your second one. So that's why we have it on both bars, so you don't have to worry about that. Next on our list is our ultimate ability. I've been testing this one, actually. It's new, and I don't really know how I feel about it yet. It's not bad, but I do believe there might be some better ones, but it has come in handy for clutch situations before. Now, I think the pre-morph is called Panacea, and the morph, there's a Lights Champion and something else. The Lights Champion one is just better in my opinion. Because I don't remember the other one. Plus, so what the effect does when morphed is when you heal an ally or yourself, they gain major force, major protection for 5 seconds, increasing critical damage by 30%, and reduces their damage taken by 30%. So generally, if you can cast this on your tank in a dungeon, reducing their damage is generally good, so it's easier to do. Alright, so that's been our first bar. Let's say you don't have it at level 50. The way you get to ultimates is by getting it to level 50. If you don't have it, you can always have another choice of Meteor on this bar. Or you can have Warhorn. Now I understand Warhorn is a PvP ability, and not everyone has it, so that's why I'm giving you extra options. But if you're healing, generally you want to get your staff to 50 as soon as possible. And that goes for like every class. Whatever you're doing mainly, like DPS, have all your main bars at 50. If you don't have it, Solar Prison, if this is the very last resort you're going to, if you really don't have anything at 50, Solar Prison works. And yeah, it's not that bad. It does more damage. So, we're going on to our DPS bar right now. Now, this one actually can change up depending on the situation. So, as I showed you in the beginning of the video, that you can either use a Destruction Staff or you can have dual-wield weapons. Now, the Destruction Staff, I chose Crushing Shock for this one just for a DPS. That was what I was using at the moment. However, that can be replaced if you're not using Destruction and you're using dual wield or something. You can replace it for pretty much like anything here. Repentance is always a good one. It's a free ability that just gives everyone health and stamina on the dead enemies that you kill, depending on where you are. Channeled Focus is also a good one. It increases, like, it gives you a protection circle. Or you can have Blazing Spears. Now, Blazing Spears, essentially, you toss down spears that people pick up and increase their stamina recovery. Or not recovery, it's just like they gain some stamina back from picking it up. Our next ability is Radiant Oppression. Now, Radiant Oppression has been known to be one of the strongest abilities for magic, Templars, and it just does a lot of damage. Like, even just this one ability, if it's enemies in execute range, it can out DPS some DPS characters, which is pretty outstanding because if you're doing that, it's pretty fantastic. However, it is a very expensive to cost ability. So this one's mostly used for damage and executes. If you don't know what execute is when an enemy is under, like, let's say 30% health, it'll tell you you can like hit them with an execute. That means it should finish them off instantly within the next like 5 seconds or so. So if I use the term execute, that's what I mean. Enemies at like 30% health left and just burn it down. So next ability, you guys may have seen this one before. Breath of Life. This is a very, very strong healing ability. So you should have this one always as a Templar. It's kind of your emergency heal ability, simply because sometimes people just drop down to like from 100% health to like 5% immediately, and this one just brings them up back to like almost full if possible, or full depending on how you build. So this is your emergency spell, but it is very strong. It also costs a lot to use. Now, Extended Ritual is kind of interesting. You can either replace this for Repentance or Channeled Focus, assuming you don't have both of them. I kind of switch this up quite often depending on what I'm doing. However, I do like Extended Ritual because when you cast it like this, you see that radius of circle around you? That is the radius people can stand in, activate synergies, and get healed over time. Whereas if I put Extended Ritual on, that one has a smaller circle. However, when you heal, like, the numbers will be higher, but it is a smaller circle. But I do believe I am competent enough to like heal over that, and it just makes things easier if you have a bigger circle, in my opinion. So I just like extended ritual a little bit more. But either way, it doesn't matter. And then on your back bar, once again, all the ultimates I listed before are good. However, this one, since it's your backup bar, I would highly recommend, if you don't have Warhorn, is Meteor or Shooting Star, simply because it is an extra damage. Plus, this one passive right here increases your max magicka and recovery. Well, it's 1% for each, or 2% for each major skill slotted. So this is 1, and then if you had Meteor right here, it would be 2, so it increases your max magicka by 4%. And as you may imagine, more magicka and more spell damage equals higher healing. So that's good. Yeah? Okay. And but overall, I've been playing on this with this one ability, and it seems to be fine. The cost isn't that much. It's like I can cast the Lights Champion twice before I can cast one horn. So you can. This one is a more clutch situation heal. I know there are some dungeons that drain your resources really quickly, and when you have like 0 magic and your potion's on cooldown, for example, if you have this one up, it's like an emergency heal, and it just makes sure that people don't die. So those are the abilities I used. There were quite a few options you could switch out, but for the most part, I think overall these are good. And yeah, so let's go on to champion points. Alright, so let's go on to the most important one. Your blue one is the most important, and then the green one is there's really only like 2 slots that really make sense to put the points in, and this one I'll try to explain them a little bit. So let's go on with the most important one. The Apprentice. You're a healer. Just keep that in mind. You want the effectiveness of your healing done by 25%. Max this out immediately. This is very important. And then after this is where things split off. Increases damage and healing dealt by spell criticals. So if you essentially hit a critical, increases the damage and healing by more. Or if you want overall damage, like let's say you don't hit a critical, your damage can be mixed in if you want higher overall damage, or if you want higher critical damage and healing. So the way I built this one is a little bit more on the crit side. So if I'm just hoping more that my damage and healing will be higher by criticals, just because I use it for more trials and emergencies. But if your team is good overall, I think you could put more into Elemental Expert. However, between these two, after you max this one out, you can split them evenly, or you can put them all into one. It doesn't really matter, but just keep in mind that Blessed is the most important one for your healer. Alright, so let's go on to the one where there's really only 2 options to put it in as a healer. Alright, so the first one is Magician. Reduces the magicka cost of all spells. Yeah. Reduces the cost means you can heal more for less magic. Pretty self-explanatory. Now this one is increases your magicka recovery. You can heal faster. Alright then. Next tree. Alright, so this one is where things get a little tricky. These two are the most important ones. Hardy and Elemental Defender. Now the reason why you're going to want to split them somewhat evenly is because these are essentially your resistances. And this one is more like poison, disease, and physical damage. That's reduced damage. And this one is elemental, essentially. So, if you know where you're having troubles, let's say you're a healer and you're getting killed by something, do you know if you're getting killed by magic or if you're getting killed by dots, as in poison, or getting meleeed, that's where you kind of want to focus your points into a little bit more. But overall, you kind of want to even them out, and then if you know what you're doing, you can always change them up. But in my case, my physical resistance is a little bit lower, and when I die, it's more to physical hits, and like an enemy will just run up to me and then like heavy attack, and I'm just at like 20% health. So I decided to put some more points into physical damage resistances over a little bit more magic, since my magic resistance is a bit higher. And then after this, after you even these out to whatever you think you're comfortable with, you can put some points into the other ones. Now I'm still testing this one. Reduces the damage you take from damage over time effect, or DOT as we call it. And let's say you get hit by a poison arrow, and then you take poison damage over time. Having the thick-skinned ability reduces that damage. Now this one is a questionable one. Increases your spell resistances by X amount. The reason why I put points into this tree is because I really want some of the phase abilities, or the passive you get for putting 30 points in. But generally, you might want to even it out. So I might actually take 20 points out of here and put it into here. Whether you want this or not, it doesn't matter. If you don't want that ability, you can just put more points into here. It doesn't matter if you want like 100. And I think the cap is 561, so 187 in each tree. And so if you wanted like 90 and 90 and then whatever left over, that's fine. But I think I might switch it out and take 20 points out of some of them and put it into here. Now, does it really matter which one you put it into for here? No, but this is the best choice. Otherwise, you really just want the 30-point phase ability, which is after using your roll or your resistances are higher. So overall, that's how I chose it. There is no right or wrong answer. You do whatever you want ultimately, but this is just what works for me. So now that we've gone over champion points, we've gone over this, and yeah, I guess we'll go over potions, I guess. Okay, so this is something that people tend to miss. So as you may imagine, how do I explain this? Potions, or food in our case, comes in different colors: green, blue, and purple, and then there's obviously gold. Gold doesn't always mean it's the best. Purple means it's tri-stat. Blue means it's bi-stat. So look at this one. This is the one I actually do use. Increases your max health and magicka by, or max health by 5,000 and max magicka by 4,900 for 1 hour. Now, you see there's only 2 stats that it gives like resources to. However, it is higher than using a purple one. So if you were to use a purple one, it'd be like give, I don't know, 3,000 health, magic, and stamina to your character. But if you don't use your third stat or third resource, then you're essentially losing out on what could be 2,000 extra health on your ability. And 2,000 health could mean a one-shot in the dungeon, especially if you're lower than whatever the cap is. So using blue food is generally what most people use. It also is a little bit cheaper than the purple one. It is ultimately situational, but I do believe blue is the best choice because most people don't actually use all 3 stats or 3 resources. But I like health and magic. As long as I have those, I'm fine. Stamina, it's not that important as a healer. So blue stat or blue food is good enough for me. And then, yeah, let's see what else is there. We went over all the gear. We went over champion points and everything else. So I think that is pretty much it. And if you do have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. If you have any questions on anything about healer build, DPS, I've played literally everything in this game. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll do my best to help you. And before we do leave, I do want to say, if you don't follow me on Twitch TV, I'll leave a link in the description. If you would like to play with me, I usually like to stream dungeons, and I like to play with you viewers and followers, subscribers. So if you need help with anything, follow me on Twitch, and then whenever I'm live, I usually just read chat, and if someone wants to join in the dungeon, I'll run you through it with like three of you guys in chat, and then me here as, like, I don't know, DPS or healer, depending on what you guys are doing. And you guys get to interact with me, and I might be starting up my guild again that I started 2 years ago. I still technically own it, but it's dead at the moment, so it's mostly just used as a bank. So I might be starting that up soon. So if you don't, if you're new to the game, you feel free to send me a message. You could do it by the mail icon, and you can just do that at me, and then that's mine. Just send me a mail, leave a message. I do read all of them. And with that said, I think that is about everything. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is over here. I thought this would be self-explanatory, but people still do have questions. Your health. If you're doing dungeons and trials, try to keep your health above 18,000, especially if you are above champion point 160. Now with the 1 Tamriel, I do believe they scale everything to 160. So generally, stay above 18,000. And if your magicka is above 36,000, that's good. I always tried to be above average, so 17,000 is the very minimum you can have that's doable. However, there are a lot of enemies that will one-shot you. 18,000 is generally the safe zone, and then anything above that is, I mean, you can survive and self-heal a little bit. And then the way it works is, if you want more health, you would be losing a little bit of magic. So generally, I found a good balance between these two. 18,000 health is generally survivable, and it gives me enough time, or it gives the healer enough time to be able to heal you in case you do take a heavy hit that does like most of your damage. Not only will you survive it, it'll make sure you have enough health that your healer has enough situational awareness to heal you. And one thing is, based on what I just said, if you're under 18,000, you can always change your enchantments on your armor, but just to make everything easy, put all 64 into magic. If somehow you don't know what you're doing, feel free to ask. I'm always here to help. But you could always like swap it out. It gives about plus 110 to each stat that you minus. So like, let's say I put 1 point into health, that's plus 110. And then that's pretty much it. So just as a quick recap, things you should look out for in terms of like traits and stuff. Magicka enchant is very important. Stay above 18,000 health. That's safe zone. And divines is generally your best bet for your traits. And for your healing trait, always go powered. Don't do anything else. Always powered. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video and this is the first video you've ever seen of mine, feel free to hit the subscribe button. I do upload videos 7 days a week. I would love to see you come back, and see you guys again tomorrow for a new video. Have a fantastic day.